World Hearing Day is celebrated across the world on 3rd of March of every year. The day is set aside by the WHO to create awareness on hearing impairment and loss. This year, Ghana is celebrating the day with a theme: Screen, Rehabilitate and Communicate. Across the world, each year, the World Health Organization decides the theme and develops evidence-based advocacy materials such as brochures, flyers, posters, banners, infographics, and presentations, among others. The day is celebrated across the world to make a conscious effort to eradicate some major causes of deafness and hearing loss. And its focus is to screen babies and children at the early stages of their lives to examine the hearing sense before they grow. We are here at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital to speak to audiologists on how they plan to celebrate the day. In an interview with a senior audiologist at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital, Joseph Omani Boateng, he noted that this year's celebration is focused more on children between 0 to 3 years.
For now, what I can say is those of us who are in the field that are carrying it out at our various centers, it has not really gotten to the national level, but in the individual hospitals where we have hearing healthcare specialists, each year we try through the media, the various hospitals try to create awareness. We go out to schools and other places to do some screening or to draw attention to hearing healthcare. As we all know, we are currently not in normal times, so even though our theme for the year is screen, rehabilitate, communicate, we are not going all out as we usually do to screen, because that will involve moving from place to place, meeting different people. Now with all this social distancing and all that, we are not doing that. So we are taking advantage of the media, social media, the news media to make create awareness. And then some facilities like Confanoche will be carrying out newborn screening at selected facilities. Similarly, in Korle Bu, we will also be carrying out some newborn hearing screening. So they are all going to be based in the facilities. We are not going out this year.
Explaining how the ear functions, Mr. Omani Boateng stated that the ear is a major sensory part of the body.
The ear has 3 parts. We have the outer ear, that's from the pinna to the eardrum, that's the white. Then there's a middle ear which is the yellow part, which is made up of these tiny bones and then the space over there and then this tube. So that forms the middle ear. Then the inner ear, which is this snail-like organ called the cochlea, and that is connected to the auditory nerve. Now, with the conductive loss, as sound enters the ear, it strikes the eardrum, sets it into vibration. The sound is conducted through these bones. They in turn set the fluid in this organ in motion. There are tiny hair cells in the organ which moves in response to the movement of the fluid, and that's how hearing takes place. Their movement generates what we call action potentials, which are like electricity, and that is conducted through the auditory nerve to the brain for interpretation. So this from the outer and middle, when there are things there, you can see that the actual hearing occurs after the sound waves have been converted to the electrical impulse. So this is where hearing itself takes place. So from here to here is just the sound waves. So if you have wax, excessive wax buildup, it can reduce the intensity of sound even before it gets to the organ here. If there's an infection and there's fluid buildup, or there's a problem with any of these tiny bones, then sound, even though the sound is loud, it will not be conducted well to the organ. So any problem along this pathway that is leading to the hearing loss is what gives rise to the conductive hearing loss. And most of the time it can be managed because it's something that is obstructing the sound. So if it is a sexy wax, it can be washed. If it's a foreign body, you can remove it. If it's an infection, it can be treated. Some may involve medical or surgical intervention, and then we expect the hearing to come back, improve, because whatever was causing it has been taken care of. With the inner ear, unfortunately, from this side to the brain, it involves nerves, and nerves do not regenerate. The organ here can be affected by some infections, certain medications, and then they cause harm to the tiny hair cells, which convert the sound waves to the electrical impulses. So once that is done, then there's a hearing loss. So this is the sensory and neural part of the ear. So that gives rise to a sensory neural hearing loss. You may have a case where there's a problem with the organ, and there's also an infection or excessive wax buildup, foreign body here. So there's a conductive and there's also a sensory neural. So together you get a mixed hearing loss. So a combination of the conductive and the sensory neural will give you the mixed hearing loss.
He further stated that people do not really see hearing loss as a major health challenge, adding that its treatment is not covered by the National Health Insurance Scheme.
Most people, most of the time, the ear is relegated to the background. Some don't see it as serious as maybe the eye, or they don't see it as an emergency. But with the people who have issue with the ear, they know the kind of difficulty they are going through. Besides the lack of facilities, the cost of hearing care is also very high. Most people are not able to afford. They come, you let them know the cost of the test or the intervention the child or the person will need, and then they go and they don't come back. Currently, it is not covered by the insurance, NHIS. We've made several appeals.
Statistics given by Mr. Omani Boatin indicates that the facility records about 10 to 15 cases every day, and these are referred cases from other hospitals because hearing aid centers are limited in the country.
Usually the cases we see here are referred cases, so you can't really use it as a way to estimate the prevalence. But most of the people who are coming have been referred from other facilities with suspected hearing loss. But it's quite a figure. In a day, we see not less than 10 to 15 people, and most of them, as I said, because it's a referral center, most of them have hearing loss. We don't have enough facilities. We don't have enough facilities for the government. In the government institutions, audiology services are not available in all the facilities across the country. From the north, maybe apart from Tamale Teaching Hospital, there's nothing. If you come to the south, then you are looking at Konfuanochi, Kolebu, 37. Then other private centers that are helping. So we've always pleaded that these facilities be set up, at least if we have it at the regional hospitals, each region having access to an audiology center. That will help. In training or in admitting people for the training, the institutions also consider the fact that the facilities are not available. The personnel are not many, but even the few around, it is not all of them that government has engaged, because the facilities are not there for them to work in. Because the facilities are few, so there's a lot of traffic at the few ones you have available, because people are crossing from region to region to come to Kolebu, to go to Konfanochi. So always there's a lot of pressure on such facilities.
Speaking on what causes hearing loss, Mr. Mani Boateng stated that there are three major types of hearing loss: the conductive, sensorineural, and mixed hearing loss. He explained the factors that account to hearing loss.
So basically we have three types. We have the conductive hearing loss, sensorineural hearing loss, and then mixed hearing loss.
Okay.
With the conductive, it has to do with either infection or excessive buildup of wax or some foreign body reducing in the pathway of sound before it gets to where hearing itself takes place. As we know, the external ear only helps to collect the sound waves and then direct it into the ear for hearing to take place. So along that pathway, maybe if you have excessive wax buildup, if there's a foreign body or an infection, it reduces the intensity of sound before it gets to where the hearing itself is going to take place. So that's a conductive hearing loss. Conditions like severe malaria, meningitis, mumps, rubella, other medications, as I said, like you have anti-malaria, some cancer drugs, TB medications, some strong antibiotics can affect the hair cells. You get it? And then if the person also develops an infection during that time, the middle ear infection, then you have both. The hair cells, as I said, is not this from this side. Medicine or surgery cannot help that much, so the person will need rehabilitation. You need something to support the hearing, and that's where the hearing aid and then assistive devices come in. The normal aging process also affects the hair cells because they are moving, and over the years with movement there's wear and tear, and then so there's naturally hearing loss occurring as one ages. Excessive noise exposure also affects the hair cells and can give you a sensorineural hearing loss. The ear doesn't sleep, let me put it that way. It's working all the time. Even when you are asleep, it is working. That's why when somebody mentions your name in your sleep, you wake up because you heard. So if, let's say, you're using the earpiece, the ear doesn't get to rest. Once in a while you need a bit of what? Quietness, because the ear cannot choose to work or not. So when you give yourself some quietness, then at least you are preventing it from you get it. So it gets to what? Rest. At its rest, if there are some repairs that has to go on in there naturally by the body itself, that can be done. But let's say you work in a factory throughout your shift, 8 hours or 12 hours, you have been exposed to noise, you've closed, you've come out of that environment, the ear is now going to recover from all the movements it has gone through during your working period. Then as you are sitting in the transport, you put in your earpiece, it's like you've gone back to death. You get it, and it continues. Some cannot even sleep without music in the background and all. So you are sort of overworking the ear. And then something that, as I said, with age is supposed to take you maybe in your 50s, 60s. Yes, because it is working like something that it will take maybe several years to cover. It's doing it within some weeks. Excessive noise damages the nerves, the hair cells in the cochlea, which can give you a hearing loss. It can give you what we call tinnitus, where you'll be there and you hear noise, some ringing noise in the ear, but there's no sound in the environment. It's just in your ear. So it's not something that is encouraged at all. No health professional will recommend that you use pen top or matches stick to take out wax. Now, first of all, the wax is there for a reason. As you can see, this is an extension of the skin.
In the canal.
Yes, in the canal. And the wax is produced by some hair cells in there. They produce some oil which contains some chemicals that kills germs as it enters the ear. Now, if you take everything out, then you leave the place bare, and then germs can easily thrive. And that will lead to the itching. That will lead to the itching, and then you try to clean again, and then it becomes a cycle. You can even injure the place because it's a very how do I say it? It's a very sensitive area. So it's not advisable to, if you feel there's something in your ear, you visit your health center. They will check. If there's a need to even wash, they will do the washing for you. Now it's quite common to see people with hands-free. The hands-free uses Bluetooth, and as I said, once it meets the radiation requirement, you are okay. But with the hearing, if you have it on the right ear, that means all your calls, you are going to receive it with the right ear. That is going to put a lot of pressure on that ear. So it's highly possible for that ear to be going down with time, especially if your work involves the receiving of a lot of calls or having long conversations on the phone. Because what we encourage is you interchanging the ears as at when the calls come in. But when you use the hands-free, you are not able to do that because it's just on one ear. So that if throughout the day you get 50 phone calls, that means they are all going to the right ear. And that puts a lot of pressure on that ear.
The mother of a 13-year-old boy who lost his hearing senses 6 years ago stated that the cost of treatment is very expensive and it is the major reason many do not get treatment for hearing losses. She, however, called on the president to reduce the taxes on the importation of the devices since they are not manufactured locally.
Time I was on, say, Uber when Samna Oya, just a be a wire noise in the baby answer. A bit to me or at. To be sure, I'm sure there we send a choir someone in the bar. To me, by Satan, you know, or 3 years. I almost say, Onuminians and to me train on ya, where 5 years going, no me the number. Satan, I almost say 800. I'm say 800. And I'm Saturday anyway, I call on ye cacra, now the number until you buy no. Almost free be so you're tennis is free no, and back them see there be a semi and Cassam 2 and one of a better my dear. And I'm buying Saturday, a ton 2,000. And I'm a dear into Mesra by say, over Tisuka, over tax, and Susanna Baya. Will be able to me, I will be a Hanuma ohia sika ohia de ba ne hia saa de ne bi nanso na so oni sika ne ntino ontimi ento ntima stra aban se obeti tax so se na be obi abetimi anya bi ahya ne ba.
Eunice Apia-Kron, an audiologist, affirmed that the cost is expensive since the devices are not produced locally and there are no manufacturing bases in the country.
The theme for this year's World Hearing Day is Screen, Rehabilitate, Communicate. So for screening, what we have to do is to screen newborn babies for hearing loss. That happens in the hospitals, and in Kolebu at the moment we have only one OAE screening machine that we use, and we are not able to screen all the babies that are born in the hospital. And with that same machine we cannot screen all the babies that are born in the country. So what we do now is we do targeted screening. That is, we screen children who have been in the neonatal intensive care. Now the children who have been diagnosed of jaundice, those who have had other infections during birth, and then those who have suffered other ailments whilst they have been in the hospital. So for those who've had meningitis, and then for those who've had other illness like I mentioned. So we do the targeted screening for these groups of people. And at the moment, we've had a lot of cases where these children that we've screened have come out to have a hearing loss. And then we need to rehabilitate them, just as the theme says. But that is where the issue is, because when they come and then we screen them and then we find out that they have a hearing loss, what we have to do is to find out how best to rehabilitate that child, or how best to rehabilitate the person. And then that is where the hearing aids come in. It depends on the type of rehabilitation that we are doing. So if the child has a hearing loss, that can be helped by a hearing aid. We prescribe the hearing aids after we've done the hearing test. But then some of them go and then they don't come back because they cannot afford the hearing aids.
However, the country's projection on treatment of hearing loss is expected to increase from its current standings of 5% to 10% by 2050.
Usually, data is not readily available in our setting, but currently hearing loss stands at about 5% per population. 5% per population. That's as at 2020. WHO is projecting it's rising all the way to 10% by 2050. So it's increasing steadily all across the world. One of the reasons is now the life expectancy is increasing, so we have a lot of aged people around, and normal aging process usually comes with some level of hearing loss. So in our setting we use 10%, about 10% of the population. So if we have currently 30 million people as our population, so we are looking at about 5 to 10% of that having hearing loss.
As we celebrate this day, it is advisable to take care of your ear as an individual. You heard the audiologist. Avoid using earpiece and headsets at all times. Make sure that when you are using your phone, you use the phone on the right ear and also intermittently change it to the left ear to avoid hearing impairment and loss. Reporting for Ghana Web TV, my name is Amos Eko Kofi.